Haunted Whispers in the Rain. Discover sinister stories of the cursed and the unexplained. The rain hammered down like an angry drum, drowning out any hint of comfort. Inside the shadowy corners of her inherited home, Emily sat clutching the remote, desperately channel surfing. Only a few days into her move to Maplewood, a wave of unease swept through her. She felt it in her bones. She folded her hands, feeling chilled, as if wrapped in an icy fog. Shadows danced along the peeling walls, and she swore she heard murmurs flickering just out of reach. On a particularly stormy night, she dove her hand between the worn sofa cushions, determined to find the TV remotes that had vanished. Instead, her fingers curled around a cold, unmarked envelope. Tossing the remotes aside, she pulled it out, a knot forming in her stomach. The crisp paper whispered secrets as she slowly pried it open. Inside were chilling tales, folklore of the town, detailing friendly neighbors with malicious hearts, tales of curses that twisted smiles into sinister smiles. At first, she laughed it off. Just stories, she told herself. But as the days rolled into torrential downpours, strange happenings arose. The lights flickered like fireflies trapped in the storm. Rain became a symphony of whispers, beckoning her with eerie calls. And then there was Ben, her precious boy. He chattered about an invisible friend, a presence that seemed far too knowledgeable for his 7 years. Her heart raced. Why did dread cling to her every move? She had escaped from a dark marriage, yet here she was, drowning in another murky sea of fear. Her protective instincts surged. She sped through the archives in search of answers, hoping to a glimpse of safety in this daunting place. The community leader, a beloved figure, bore weighty rumors that hung like dark clouds. Whispers of manipulation and past abuse. The very name felt heavy on her tongue, like lead. The rain intensified, and with each revelation, dread spidered into her very being. She felt claustrophobic. Those same neighbors, once painted as friends, grew monstrous in the crucible of her fear. Each flicker of light seemed deliberate, sinister. This unshakable anxiety wrapped around her mind, a shackle she couldn't break. It twisted and turned, reflecting her agony, a quest for peace that only sank deeper into turmoil. Just when she mustered the strength to confront that charming yet twisted figure, the storm intensified. The gusts beat against the windows like a dozen frantic heartbeats. And then the breath left her lungs. Where was Ben? Panic seized her throat as she called his name against the roar of rain. The streets lay drenched and veiled, echoing with a haunting rhythm that made her blood freeze. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Emily stumbled, slipping into a world of hazy terror, past the vibrant community center where laughter dripped like poison. There, distorted faces turned toward her, smiles warped into malevolent grins, as if the shadows were alive, hungry for her fear. Suddenly, a faint voice broke through the chaos, the sound of Ben's friend. "Mom, I'm here." The voice drifted through the storm, a chilling beckon that sent shivers racing down her spine. The darkness pressed against her as she moved toward the sound, heart pounding, terror overwhelming her senses. Time escaped her, and she realized, was she too late? The whispers wrapped around her like a vice. She had to find Ben before Maplewood claimed them both, before it returned her to a nightmare she couldn't escape. Emily stepped into the suffocating darkness that surrounded her.
Each step felt like wading through thick fog. Her breath quickened. She wanted to scream Ben's name again, but the sound was trapped in her throat. The downpour outside was relentless, morphing into a monstrous beast that roared with increasing ferocity. "Ben!" she called, voice cracking against the sound of the storm. It felt flimsy, like paper in the wind. The neighborhood around her was transformed. Doors slammed shut like sentences ending, and windows flickered with dark shapes. Emily felt their eyes on her, invisible yet tangible, studying her every move. "Mom, I'm waiting." The whisper drifted from nearby, but it didn't sound like her son. It felt like a lure, a false guide into the depths of a nightmare. Her instincts screamed for her to turn back, but she pressed on, propelled by a mother's desperation and fear. The wet pavement gleamed like glass under the rain. Shadows darted at the corner of her vision, fleeting like thoughts she couldn't catch. The mere presence of whoever or whatever was watching her tightened her chest. She desperately tried to shake off the feeling that the town itself was alive, manipulating its inhabitants, wrapping them all in its sinister embrace. "Where are you?" Emily murmured, feeling the weight of the town's secrets heavy in the air. It was stifling, filled with dread that she could almost taste. A flicker of light caught her attention, illuminating the entrance of a nearby shed, neglected and shrouded with creeping vines. With shaking hands, she pushed the door open. The creak echoed eerily, swallowed by the rain. Inside, it was dark and musty, the smell of rot hitting her like a tidal wave. Her heart pounded as she fumbled blindly, her hands sweeping across the chilled walls. The moment she turned, however, an icy hand grazed her arm. She gasped and spun around to find nothing, just darkness, and the aching silence of the shed pressing down on her. But as she took a step back, something scraped against her ankle. A small doll, caked in mud and grime, lay on the floor, its button eyes staring blankly up at her. She recognized it instantly. The one Ben had left behind days ago, a small gift from a friendly neighbor that now felt like a cursed relic. "Ben?" she whispered, dread creeping along her spine. The doll's presence throbbed with warning, and suddenly it wasn't just the storm outside she feared. It was the encroaching realization that darkness slinked from countless hidden corners of Maplewood, twisted in ways she couldn't yet understand. Before she could regain her composure, a gust swirled through the door, slamming it shut behind her. She was now enveloped in darkness, cut off from escape. The whispers grew louder, conspiratorial, hissing secrets that clawed at her sanity. "Mom, play with me." The voice was soft now, beckoning in an innocent tone that sent chills down Emily's spine. "Ben!" she shouted, more fiercely this time, as panic filled her veins. Time slipped through her fingers like sand. Had they taken him? Or worse, was he truly in league with whatever hunted her? As the whispers rose to an unbearable crescendo, Emily lunged for the door. But it wouldn't budge. The walls seemed to pulse with laughter. She slid down to the floor, heart racing and breath quickening, caught in a fragile web spun from fear. And then she felt it. The air changed. The shadows deepened, coiling tighter around her. A voice whispered directly into her ear, cold as steel. "You're too late. He's not the only one we've been waiting for." A chilling question loomed in the thickening fog of terror. Who else were they waiting for? Emily pressed her back against the door, her hands trembling as she strained to hear beyond the rising chaos. The whispers twisted around her, hot breaths against her skin, leading her thoughts astray. "You're too late," they mocked. "You should have listened, Emily." Panic surged as she tried again to shove the door open, her shoulder colliding with the wet wood, but nothing shifted. The laughter echoed, distorted and mocking, sending a bolt of icy dread through her heart. In the suffocating darkness, the corners of the shed shifted and rolled like a living thing, wrapping around her tighter with each choked breath. "Stop! Stop!" she shouted into the void, her voice strained and hoarse. The whispering ceased momentarily, leaving a hollow silence that stretched painfully. Then, as if responding to her despair, a low creaking erupted within the shadows, and something began to emerge through the darkness. It moved fluidly, like smoke curling through the air. Emily's heart raced to an almost unbearable rhythm. Was it Ben? Was he trapped somewhere nearby? "Mom, help!" The voice fractured, no longer childish, distorted, mingling with another, older tone. "She's kept us apart. You must play the game." "Game?" Emily breathed, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. "What game?" But no answer came, only the darkness.
Swirling, whispering endlessly secrets meant to ensnare her mind. In a desperate attempt to fight the flooding fear, she turned back towards the doll, its button eyes still fixed on her, unblinking. Was it a warning, an omen, or something worse? She scooped it up, feeling its cold, damp surface slip against her fingers. "Are you trying to tell me something?" she pleaded, shaking the doll as if it could provide answers. Suddenly, the shed's walls shuddered violently, as if alive. The laughter returned, but with a sharper edge, piercing through her thoughts. "She's coming, Emily. She wants you." Her breath quickened, the air becoming heavy with an unnatural weight. She dropped the doll, its body hitting the ground with a dull thud that cut through the laughter. She needed to escape, to find Ben, to get out of here and away from whatever was creeping ever closer. "Ben!" she shouted again, desperation clawing at her throat. "Where are you?" A soft thud behind her drew her attention. Heart pounding like a drum, she turned. A figure materialized through the darkness, swirling shadows forming a silhouette. Emily's breath caught as she squinted into the haze, trying to make sense of the shape. It was a child, small and frail. "Ben?" "Mom," the figure whispered, its voice hauntingly familiar, yet twisted. "Ben!" she cried, rushing forward, but as she approached, the child's face shifted into something grotesque and distorted. It wasn't him. The features morphed, resembling several children at once, hollow-eyed and grinning. A chorus, the faceless child's laughter, jumping into the shadows with manic glee. The walls began to close in, and dread settled deep in her bones. "Get away!" But before she could turn to flee, the door vanished, swallowed by the dark fabric enveloping her. The whispers crescendoed again, taunting, delighting in her torment. "You have joined us." As her heart sank, the floor beneath her trembled, and she felt something thick and cold wrapping around her ankles. Panic surged as the whispers crescendoed into a mad cacophony, drowning out her thoughts. Who else are they waiting for? She realized with a thunderbolt of terror, the answer dawning like a dark storm cloud over her sanity. "Mom, play with me." That voice, laced with an innocent pitch, echoed fiercely in her mind. How many had they taken? And then darkness dropped heavily around her as she struggled against the grasping shadows. Rational thoughts slipped away. "Come, Emily," the voice bade, honey-sweet yet laced with sinister undertones. "It's time to play." She closed her eyes, the despair engulfing her, but through the void, a sliver of determination sparked. She wouldn't go down without a fight. With every ounce of will she had left, Emily pushed against the darkness, her voice breaking with strength. "I'm not done yet!" But as she fought against the encroaching dread, something behind her moved, a chill creeping onto her back. The feeling of more than just shadow at her heels, more than mere whispers, lingering just behind. What emerged next would change everything.
Who else was drawn into the darkness like a moth to flame? The ground beneath her feet turned slick and cold, a sensation like ice racing up her legs. Emily struggled to break free from the grip of the shadows, but they clung tighter, their whispers wrapping around her like a noose. The air thickened, heavy with despair and something worse, hunger. "Play with us," the voices cooed in an unsettling chorus, each tone dripping with malice. Emily felt her heart hammering, racing to a rhythm dictated by something beyond her control. She stomped, screaming against the cacophony, driven by primal fear. "Let me go! I will not play!" With one last surge of energy, she twisted, wrenching her body free from the biting darkness that sought to ensnare her. She opened her eyes, bracing herself for whatever horrors awaited her. The shed had morphed into a twisted illusion, a maze of shadows that writhed like living things. Each footfall felt unsteady, as if the ground was calculating her every move, waiting to swallow her whole. The laughter echoed, airy and cruel, bouncing off the walls, taunting her. "Where are you, Ben?" she cried, desperation clawing at her throat as she stumbled deeper into the darkness. A flicker of light caught her eye, a glimmer of hope. It flickered, once, twice, illuminating a small warped window. An escape? She darted towards it, heart pounding like a war drum. As she reached out, the laughter intensified, shriller, almost mocking. "It won't let you go, Emily! You can't escape!" Still, she pressed on, her fingers brushing the edges of the window as she pushed with all her strength, praying for freedom. But the glass refused to budge, a barrier solid as stone. Instead, it rippled, revealing not her reflection, but a scene, a nightmarish tableau of other children, their faces twisted in anguish, endlessly pleading, "Help us!" "Ben!" she gasped, reeling back. The vision shattered, replaced by another flash, her own son, trapped in a realm of darkness, crying, "Mom, please!" Desperation laced his voice. "No!" Emily shouted, rage igniting within her. "I will find you, no matter what!" The whispers turned to howls, a sinister wind whipping around her, disorienting her senses. As the shadows pressed in on her, she could almost see them, their twisted forms flittering at the edge, hungry and excited, drawn to her wavering spirit. "Join us. You belong with us," they urged, the nails on the edge of 1,000 fingertips scraping against her sanity. Emily clutched her head, squeezing her eyes shut. "I belong with my son!" she yelled, rage coursing through her. Suddenly, from behind, she felt something, warm breath against her neck. Her heart dropped. "Mommy," the voice breathed, soft, almost pleading. She spun around, terrified of what she might see. It wasn't Ben. The shadow before her took the shape of a girl, no more than 5, the same hollow eyes peering into her soul, mouthing words she couldn't hear. As Emily stared, the girl began to morph, her features shifting into many faces, merciless, taunting. "Come play." Emily stepped back in horror, her mind racing. How could she fight this? What happened to the children? Why were they trapped? The darkness surged, anxious for her surrender. With every breath, their demand grew louder, more desperate. "Join us, Emily." The amalgamation of twisted faces grinned wider, stretching impossibly wide, and she felt her resolve waning. "I won't!" she shrieked, finding a flicker of strength within the fear. "I'll break this cycle!" She turned and ran, blindly lurching through the oppressive dark, carrying her determination forward like a light in the night. But the shadows surged around her, blocking her path. The laughter filled the air once more, surging against her skin like a cold wave. Breathless, desperate, they were closing in. Suddenly, a glimmer caught her attention again. A sliver of bright light broke through a new crevice, beckoning her forward. Could it be an exit? A chance to save Ben? Or another trap? With a final burst of steely resolve, she hurtled toward the light, the whispers rising to a crescendo behind her. "You cannot escape us, Emily!" What would she face beyond that blinding threshold? All she knew was she had to find out. The stakes had never been higher. Would she unravel the truth or become just another whisper in the dark? As Emily barreled forward, the bright light enveloped her, pressing against her skin like a hot iron. She felt a momentary pulse of warmth, a fleeting illusion of safety, before the world around her contorted again. The radiance exploded outward, shifting to a cold white, pinching her vision before spilling her out into what felt like another dimension. She landed hard on the ground, her breath escaping her in short gasps. The air here was laced with a metallic tang, sharp and nauseating. She pushed herself up, shaky and disoriented. Gritting her teeth, she scanned the scene around her. The landscape twisted grotesquely. A carnival setting, with rusting rides and faded pastel colors, stood frozen in time. Every joyous bell and shriek had rotted away, leaving only husks of laughter and echoes of delight. Emily's heart sank. The place felt enchanted, but not in a good way. Behind that laughter, something dark festered. "Ben!" she called, her voice catching among the rickety booths and derelict carousel. No response met her. Only the wind sighed through the empty tents. As she took hesitant steps forward, she could hear it again, the distant whispering, chilling her bones. "Come, play with us." Their voices echoed through the carnival's crumbling attractions, the shadows coiling around her like serpent clouds. "Where are you?" Her heart raced, each beat pounding against her ribcage, a reminder of her urgency. She started walking, careful to tread loudly, hoping any sound might breach the heavy silence. A flicker from the Ferris wheel caught her eye. Light glinted off the rusted metal, but it was unlike any flash of hope she'd seen before. It called like a beacon from some netherworld, beckoning her.
Forward into danger. Was it just another trick or a sign? She approached, pushing through the remnants of what would have once been children's laughter. The carnival games, once vibrant, now lay in disarray. Torn teddy bears grinned maniacally, their glass eyes watching, judging. She felt their hollow gaze and shuddered. The whispers morphed into a chaotic mix of laughter and cries. "Help us!" came the cries, reverberating through the space, echoing her mind. "Leave me alone!" Emily shouted, frustration bubbling to the surface. She had to find Ben. Determined, she stepped cautiously up to the base of the Ferris wheel, its towering structure looming like a demon against the churning sky. A chill swept through her, raising goosebumps on her flesh. She climbed a few steps up, hoping to catch a glimpse of him from above. Suddenly, a creak echoed, reverberating louder than the whispers. The wheel shifted, as if just waking up from a long slumber, rugged and unsteady. Emily froze, her heart thumping in her ears. Something was wrong. The shadows slithered closer, and she felt the weight of the eyes, those terrible, haunting eyes, on her. "Mommy, please." The voice she longed for, soft, yet full of sorrow, pierced through the cacophony. She darted up the remaining steps, fear pushing her faster. "Ben, I'm coming!" But no sooner had she made it to the top than she saw it, a horrific sight. The seats were filled, but not with children playing. Oh no, they were filled with pale, twisted figures, grinning, scrunched faces, eyes hollow, as though they were shells of kids long lost, all staring at her, hungry. Join us. With a scream caught in her throat, she stumbled back. The wheel began to turn, shadows swirling rapidly below. She could feel their breath, cold and rancid at her back. They were closing in. Emily's eyes darted to the ground below her. The air was thickening, a dark cloud gathering, and she could hear the children's cries rise in pitch, transforming from pleas to sinister laughter. And then she saw it. Below them, slivers of light began to flicker, almost like fireflies. Were they exits or more traps? Was Ben among them? She needed to decide fast. Should she dive into the blinding light or stay and face the twisted phantoms surrounding her? The choice was choking, splitting her thoughts. "Mommy," the voice came again, hauntingly soft, drifting through her mind. Would she risk it all in search of her son, or succumb to the darkness that craved her spirit? In that moment, she understood. The wheel kept spinning, waiting for her answer. The chilling whispers turned into shouts, drowning out the echo of her racing heart. "Join us! Join us!" they chanted, a horrifying melody that twisted her stomach. As if in response, the Ferris wheel creaked again, its rusted metal groaning beneath the weight of the lost souls it harbored. Emily's mind reeled. Should she leap into that flickering light? Was there any hope left in this cursed place? Should the shadows win? The children's faces drew closer, their mouths stretched into eerie grins that felt like they could steal the sanity right out of her mind. "Ben!" she cried, desperation coursing through her veins, pushing her to look below, to the glowing slivers she now saw pulsating, almost alive. But the ancient wheel turned faster now, and with it the shadows surged anew. They clung to her, frigid and sticky, a ghostly embrace wanting to drag her down. Above her, the laughing apparitions leaned forward, their grotesque faces a haunting reflection of joy twisted into agony. "Mommy, come play." The echoing sound rang hollow, yet it was entwined with a desperate urgency. Each time she heard it, a piece of her resolve fractured. She shook her head, tears welling up. "No, I won't." A wild surge filled her, igniting her limbs with shaky courage. The light shimmered below, twinkling like distant stars in a night sky. An illusion? A lure? Emily took a deep breath and thought of Ben, of his warm smile and innocent laughter. She couldn't give in. "I'm coming for you!" she shouted, her throat raw. Without another moment's hesitation, she leaped off the Ferris wheel. She fell, arms wide, craving the embrace of the shimmering light. But as she plummeted, an unseen force pulled at her, a weightless grasp tugging her in the opposite direction, a desperate plea silenced only by the crack of her heart. The shadows swirled violently around her, as if they were drawn to her essence alone. The clamoring voices escalated, some joyful, others anguished. Emily felt the air shift, the light growing brighter, wrapping around her like a cocoon. But as she fell, she saw it. The faces of the lost children, distorting into anguish, screaming in a choir of despair. Then everything went dark. Silence settled heavily like a shroud. She landed unceremoniously on a damp floor, breathing hard, blood pounding in her ears. "Ben?" she whispered into the void, her voice echoing vainly against damp, rotten walls. The metallic taste returned, stronger now, mingling with the scent of decay. She trembled, pushing herself up to survey her new surroundings. The haze shifted around her, revealing shadowy shapes, fiends from her nightmare, still hungry and watching. Emily's pulse quickened. Distant giggles erupted anew, mocking her plight. "Mommy, join us." The whisper fluttered past her like a cold breeze, and she struggled to shake off the tendrils of fear wrapping tighter around her spine. Emerging from the blur, she noticed a patterned doorway in the far wall, light seeping under it, warm, golden. A promise of safety, or another deception? As she stepped toward it, hands shaking, the shadows inched closer. Their voices rose, rising and falling into a chilling crescendo. They were hungry, desperate, an insatiable need enveloping the space. Would it consume her too? Emily's heart raced. This wasn't just a choice between light and darkness anymore. It was a question of humanity. Would she let them have her? She turned, feeling the cold breath of lost children on her skin. With every ounce of resolve left, she reached for the handle. The door trembled under her touch. Before her hand could grasp it, the shadows surged in, battering at her, howling like a storm. Would she open the door, or would the darkness claim her? In that moment of uncertainty, the whispers faded to a sinister hush, and Emily knew, whatever lay beyond, it was about to change everything. The door handle felt strangely warm against her clammy palm, as if it pulsed with its own heartbeat. Emily hesitated, caught in a tug of war between her curiosity and terror. The shadows loomed ever closer, their shapes writhing like smoke, the children's laughter mingling with sobs, creating a disturbing symphony that echoed in her mind. "Mommy, join us." The voice slithered through her, and she fought to block it out, to think of Ben, to focus on saving him. If he was still out there, alive, waiting for her, it fueled her resolve like a raging fire. With a sudden burst of strength, she grasped the handle tightly, twisting it, expecting resistance, despair, or a final judgment. Instead, the door swung open with a soft creak, revealing bright light almost blinding in its intensity. But lurking within that glow was an overwhelming sense of unease. At first, she thought she saw an idyllic park, green grass and colorful flowers blooming in wild abundance. Shadows darted through the foliage, figures of children playing, laughing, their joy so pure. Yet, beneath it all, there was an unsettling stillness that gnawed at her gut. Something wasn't right. "Emily!" a voice called out, piercing through the enchanting facade. It was like a beacon cutting through fog. She felt an urge to step inside, to run toward the sound. Ben was here? Her heartbeat thundered, longing for the warmth of her son's embrace. But then she caught sight of their faces. The children turned to her, smiles stretching too wide, baring teeth that glinted like sharpened daggers. Their eyes glittered, reflecting something dark and feral. Her breath caught in her throat. "No," she murmured. Were they real, or echoes of another broken promise? "Emily, please, I'm right here." Ben's voice crackled through the laughter, desperate and pained. It surged like a wave of hope, but doubt thrummed against her mind. "Get away from them! Don't listen!" she shouted, desperately pulling herself back from the threshold. The door trembled behind her, as if it sensed her pull of panic. The shadows at her sides chuckled darkly, drawing back momentarily, but not giving up their haunting pursuit. The laughter amplified, deepening into mockery as the children began to chant, join us, forever." Emily stumbled back, catching herself before she fell, facing the abyss beyond her. The air thick with despair pressed against her skin, weighing her down. The warmth from the doorway now seemed a cruel trick. She could feel the cold creeping back, washing over her like a wave. The desire to dash forward and reach Ben battled the knowledge that this place might take him too. Ben!" she cried again. Even as the shadows whispered promises of eternal joy, of dreams fulfilled, of pain erased. What if the way out meant leaving him behind? Could she really step back? Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through, chilling her bones. The shadows surged forward once more, their voices rising in a deafening roar. "She doesn't belong to you! Join us!" Emily clenched her fists, a decision struggling to form against the cacophony pleading in her mind. If she went through the door, would she save Ben or lose him forever? The laughter turned to wailing, a piercing sound that twisted her insides, an angry storm of grief and hunger. She turned, and a flash of movement caught her eye. A figure flickered by the edge of her vision, an outline thinned and gray. Was it Ben? As the shadows pressed closer, she felt an icy hand gently touch the back of her neck, sending a jolt through her spine. "Mommy," the voice whispered again, softer now, almost pleading. Torn between the shimmering doorway and the shadows closing in, time slowed to a crawl. What would she do next? In that moment of hesitation, the fringe of darkness loomed over her, more relentless than ever. Would she give in to despair, or would this be her greatest act of defiance? As shadows whispered of her turning fate, the choice plunged deep within her, and that choice would forever haunt her. Emily's breath came shallow, panic narrowing her vision. She could almost taste the damp earth beneath her feet, feel the weight of despair tightening around her chest. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like a snake coiling for the kill. The cold fingers at her neck tightened, sending ice coursing through her veins. "Mommy," the voice whispered again, softer now, almost pleading. Torn between the shimmering doorway and the shadows closing in, time slowed to a crawl. What would she do next? In that moment of hesitation, the fringe of darkness loomed over her, more relentless than ever. Would she give in to despair, or would this be her greatest act of defiance? As shadows whispered of her turning fate, the choice plunged deep within her, and that choice would forever haunt her. Emily's breath came shallow, panic narrowing her vision. She could almost taste the damp earth beneath her feet, feel the weight of despair tightening around her chest. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like a snake coiling for the kill. The cold fingers at her neck tightened, sending ice coursing through her veins. "Mommy," the voice trembled, both familiar and twisted, creating an echo that resonated with her deepest fears. She closed her eyes, forcing her mind to focus. She could not lose Ben, not like this. With a sudden jolt of determination, she stepped back from the door. But the shadows shrieked in fury, pushing back against her resolve. "Join us!" they screamed, their voices merging into a deafening chorus. The vibrant innocence morphed into a cacophony of anguish, the laughter shifting to wails of terror, and Emily staggered, feeling the brutal sting of despair slice through her. "Ben!" she shouted, the name tearing from her throat. But instead of the reassuring answer she craved, the shadows erupted, swirling around her in a tempest of darkness. Laughter transformed into a sinister echo, mocking her desperate plea. "He's here! He's ours!" they sang, their voices layered like sirens luring a ship to ruin. Her heart raced, pounding with a primal instinct to survive. She glanced at the radiant doorway and felt it beckon with an unsettling allure. But every step towards it felt like a potential betrayal. The shadows lunged, their forms buckling and swaying, merging into grotesque shapes that threatened to swallow her whole. "Mommy, help me!" It was Ben's voice again, clear and breaking through the noise. She began to shake, fatigue and dread setting in like lead. The very world around her twisted, shadows leaking into her vision, corrupting all that once brought her comfort. "Don't listen to them! They lie!" Emily yelled, clenching her fists, fighting off the icy grip of doubt creeping into her mind. But the light from the door flickered, vibrating with an unsettling energy. An invisible force pulled at her, urging her forward. Mixed emotions crashed in her chest like a tidal wave. Would stepping through the threshold mean surrendering to the darkness? Would she trade her soul for a fleeting reunion? As if sensing her turmoil, the whispers morphed into a single voice, seductive and tempting. "Emily, we can make the pain disappear. Just come to us. No more suffering. Be whole again." Slick memories flooded her mind, her childhood, laughter in the park, the scent of sunshine. Dreams etched deep within her. But they were shadows, merely echoes of what once was, waiting for her to give in to the bleakness that hung heavy in the air. "Ben, please, I love you. Just hold on." Her voice splintered with desperation. The wind howled like a mourning ghost as she felt the ground shift beneath her. One childlike figure broke through the crowd, its face artfully obscured by shadows, yet radiating a magnetic pull. "Mommy, please, I need you." The voice was both distant and near, breaking her heart all over again. "Stay back!" she shrieked, eyes wide. Emily turned frantically to the shimmering light, feeling the vortex of shadows grasp at her ankles, dragging her toward despair. Suddenly, a hand shot out from the flickering doorway. She recognized it, small, warm, belonging to her Ben. It waved just beyond the threshold, beckoning her to reach, to leap, to take that final step. Would she take that hand, risking it all for a dream, or stand firm against the monstrous tide of despair? As the shadows lunged in one last desperate swoop, she felt the weight of eternity resting on her shoulders. In that split second, as time seemed suspended between choices, she hesitated. What awaited her on the other side? And would she emerge intact or consumed? The wailing surged, drowning all clarity, and Emily screamed, shaking under the weight of her decision. Would she choose light or darkness? The shadows surged, a dark wave crashing over her. Emily's instinct screamed for her to run, yet her heart ached for the tiny hand reaching through the doorway. The cacophony of voices rose and fell, a discordant symphony of despair that clawed at her sanity. "Mommy, help me!" The plea punctured the darkness, and instead of collapsing under the pressure, she found a flicker of something deep within her, a refusal to let fear snuff out the love she had for Ben. Gathering every ounce of strength, she could feel her courage igniting like a flame in a storm. Emily lunged toward the shadowy figure, half in, half out of the light. She thought she could almost see Ben's face emerging, distorted yet recognizable amid the darkness. But then the shadows wrapped around her again, squeezing tight, coaxing her to let go. "Come on, Emily, join us. It's so easy." The echoes seemed to fold around her, merging lie and truth into an agonizing blur. "No!" she shouted, her voice breaking through the thick air. The shadows were coiled, hissing in frustration, retreating for a moment, causing an eerie silence to blanket the area. The opening glimmered brighter, radiating warmth like a lighthouse guiding her home. With no time to waste, Emily dove toward the light again, determined to reach her son, to reclaim the connection they once shared. Arms outstretched, she felt the dazzling brilliance wrapping around her like a gentle embrace, urging her forward. But the shadows returned, swift and furious, swarming like a deadly flock.
"He's not real, not anymore," they jeered, their voices echoing with cruelty. "Leave him behind, embrace what is eternal, become one with the darkness." A blast of icy wind whipped around her, the pull of despair nearly dragging her back. She couldn't give in, not now. She focused on Ben's face, the warmth of his laughter, the sweet taste of joy shared. "I'm coming," she screamed, as adrenaline surged through her. Just as her fingers grazed the outstretched hand, a cold, clammy grip latched onto her wrist, yanking her back. "You think you can escape." The voice was ghastly, a whisper laced with malice. She felt their breath, foul and suffocating. Shadows clawed at her, trying to drag her into their depths, where there was no light, no love, only eternal anguish. Fear wrapped around her heart, but love burned brighter. "Ben!" she cried, forcing every scrap of willpower to surge through her. She twisted her wrist free, breaking their hold. The light became a beacon. In one last desperate act, she lunged into the brightness, grasping on to Ben's hand. For an instant, everything paused, the world teetering on the cusp of hope and despair. Then, a jolt of energy surged through both of them, a warm pulse that radiated love, pushing back the shadows. "Mommy?" Ben whispered, tears glistening in his eyes, and Emily felt her heart expand. But the shadows howled, a deafening roar that sent shockwaves through the air. They coiled tighter, fuming with rage, their desperation turning lethal. "You will regret this," they screeched, a promise threaded with dread. Emily could feel a cold draft creeping in as the shadows began to shift, reforming into something monstrous, a grotesque figure bearing witness to her decision. The light flickered, desperate for leverage, as darkness clawed its way back. Heart pounding, sensing the throes of chaos threatening to reclaim them both, Emily realized as the air tensed that they hadn't escaped. Not yet. "Run!" she yelled, pulling Ben along as they darted toward the light, shadows snapping at their heels. But something was shifting beneath them. The ground trembled, a rift threatening to open, swallowing all hope whole. They were caught, trapped between light and impending doom. What awaited them on the other side of that threshold? And would they make it before everything was lost? As shadows writhed in fury, Emily's heart sank. Was fleeing in vain? Behind them, the chilling laughter erupted, flinging their worst nightmares back into the night. Would they ever find peace amidst the rising dread? The darkness roared behind them, a monstrous swell eager to reclaim what slipped away. Emily's heart raced, each beat mingling with the thunderous echoes of past voices drowning in despair. She held tight to Ben's hand, feeling his warmth anchoring her against the encroaching shadows. "Keep running," she urged, adrenaline coursing through her veins like liquid fire. The light ahead flickered dimly, struggling against the suffocating darkness that clawed at their heels, desperate to snare them back into its cold embrace. Emily's heart raced, each beat mingling with the thunderous echoes of past voices drowning in despair. She held tight to Ben's hand, feeling his warmth anchoring her against the encroaching shadows. "Keep running," she urged, adrenaline coursing through her veins like liquid fire. The light ahead flickered dimly, struggling against the suffocating darkness that clawed at their heels, desperate to snare them back into its cold embrace. Emily and Ben sprinted forward, the looming shadows shrieking as they twisted and twirled, seeking to entangle them with menacing tendrils. The world spun into chaos around them. Emily's lungs burned, and each gasping breath felt heavy with dread as they neared the glowing threshold. "Mommy, I'm scared," Ben cried. but his small grip around her fingers bolstered her determination. "I know, baby, but we have to trust. We will get out," she panted, glancing over her shoulder. Behind them, the angry silhouette surged, agony written in every twisted feature. The hollow-eyed spirits cried out, their voices a chorus demanding her surrender. "Join us! Join us!" Their chant hung in the air like a heavy fog, creeping into her thoughts. "Don't listen!" she yelled desperately, her voice piercing through the chaos, igniting a spark of defiance in her heart. They barreled closer to the light, the warmth pulsing like a heartbeat, urging them onward. As they closed the distance, Emily could see movement ahead, a figure stepping out from the brightness, arms wide and welcoming. "Ben!" she cried, recognizing the radiance that felt familiar yet foreign. It was a shimmering portal, promising safety and love wrapped in golden hues. "We're almost there!" "Mommy!" Ben shrieked, and with that sound they surged into the glow together, a whirlwind of hope and trembling uncertainty. However, the moment they stepped through, a crushing force jolted them as if the air itself had shifted. Emily tumbled forward, Ben clinging to her side in a tight embrace. Blinding light enveloped them, filling every crevice with warmth. But beneath the brightness, shadows loomed, swirling with infected shadows that battled to spew forth. The cacophony faded to silence, and Emily opened her eyes to a serene landscape, a bright park untouched by the darkness. Joyful laughter echoed around them, and vibrant flowers painted the grass with splatters of color. Yet something felt disjointed, an ominous whisper just on the edge of her perception. "Ben?" She turned, her pulse thundering in her ears. He stood there, coated in radiant light, the sun glinting off his hair like a halo. He grinned, a wide, unguarded smile breaking across his face. "I'm here, Mommy!" He took a step forward, but
the shadows danced along the edges of her mind, whispering corrupt thoughts. "Stay close," she shouted, stepping toward him, a sense of urgency bubbling beneath the surface. Yet the park felt alive in a way that sent unease coiling in her stomach. Faces in the crowd blurred, laughing, welcoming, yet somehow twisted by the light. The shadows encroached. "We're waiting. We want you," they hissed, claws ready to snatch up the fragile threads of joy weaving around Ben. "No, not again!" Emily screamed. She held out her hand toward him, but the ground beneath them rippled, the brightness pulsed, revealing shadows flitting through the laughter. Each twist of movement tore at her understanding of what was real and what was a sinister illusion. "Mom!" Ben reached toward her, but a flicker appeared behind him. Laughter erupted. Children with two wide smiles emerged, their grins stretching impossibly far, as though they were puppets dancing on a string. "Join us," they sang, the words dripping with dark magic. "Stay forever in the light." Emily's heart sank. She took a step closer. "No, Ben, don't listen. Come back. Trust me." But even as she yelled, doubts crept in. Could this be another trap? Suddenly, a force pulled at her, wanting to consume her hope. The shadows flared brightly, retreating momentarily, but then surged back, threatening to collapse the fragile barrier they thought they crossed. "This place is deceiving. We have to fight," she gasped, clutching Ben tightly. "Mommy," he whined in confusion, those wide eyes reflecting her own fear. She breathed, her love for him carving away the shadows that circled their minds like vultures. No more. She refused to let the darkness take over. Finding herself standing on the edge, she proclaimed, "We will not be part of this. We choose our own fate. I will not lose you again, Ben."
With a steadfast heart, Emily lunged forward, grabbing Ben's hand, determined to forge their own path. "Together," she shouted, lifting him into her arms with sheer resolve and racing toward the heart of the golden light. The familiar warmth enveloped them upon impact, chaos swirling around them, but now it was different. It felt grounded, a force binding them together, and with each step they took, the darkness behind them shrieked in agony. "Mommy!" Ben cheered, life filling his voice, invigorating her spirit. "We can do it!" "Yes, baby, together!" she shouted triumphantly, the shadows fading behind them as their collective will ignited a blaze, pushing back against centuries of sorrow and betrayal. As they broke free from the shadow's grip, light enveloped them, sending the whispers wailing into the void. The laughter softened, a gentle echo of what once was, and darkness tore away from their hearts. When their feet landed on solid ground, Emily surveyed the park, a blend of joy and shadows slowly dissipating, revealing a new reality where freedom reigned. Ben stood beside her, innocent and bright, free from specters that once stifled their lives. "We did it, Mom!" he exclaimed, beaming up at her. She knelt, eye to eye. With him, her heart swollen with pride. "Yes, we did, and we're never going back." Emily hugged him tight, relief flooding her senses. The weight of Maplewood's curse faded, slowly replaced with healing sunshine and joy. They turned away from the darkness, hand in hand, ready to walk into the warmth of a second chance. It was a new beginning, a promise fulfilled. No more haunted whispers. Only their laughter could fill this space, carried on the wind, sweet as freedom at last. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to catch future exclusive stories that keep the adventure going. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And for true fans, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who must see this conclusion. This is the moment to stand up for the stories you love.